Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Wednesday, April 19th, 2023, coming to you from the beautiful north end of Detroit, Michigan. I'm Jairus Days, and across the table from me is
Cheyenne Oserini. Have you guys missed me?
Hey, how are you? It's been a minute. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Yeah, it's been a lot, but it's great to see you too.
Yeah. Now, there are a lot of stories to get through. Some of them, the not so fun side, things that I think that we need to address. We really didn't get a chance to on the Monday show to talk about a few things. I also kind of thought that maybe, the aspect of a parent might be a good one to put into the show for the team.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Greektown, the riverfront area, and of course, other parts of Detroit. It was not a great weekend as far as violence goes. Warm weather tends to bring a lot of these things out for a variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there were 6 shootings split between Greektown and the Riverwalk, 29 in total in the city of Detroit. Of course, there has been a quick reaction from the mayor and the police chief in regards to having a press conference and talking about increasing police presence in these areas, especially Greektown. But I think we need to unpack this a little bit more because I've been seeing on social media and seeing the conversation and listeners chiming in, and I feel like there's a lot of one answer responses to this, whether it's guns, whether it's, services, that kind of thing. But here's the deal. I really think this is a situation where we need to start talking about a true, holistic answer to this. Because let's just be very honest. This has been going on for years. This is not new. There've been press conferences around this for the last 5 years. And Cheyenne, you and I, we hung out in Greektown back in the day.
We did.
And things were not. It's almost like Greektown, I don't know this is official policy or whatever, but it's almost like Greektown's been like a release valve for some of these issues for a long time. And I support let's trying to address them. But I think we need to talk about this in the terms that this is a systemic and generational tragedy. This has been going on for a while. This is tied onto greater issues than just what is happening in Greektown. And this is rooted in trauma, and it creates more trauma. And I think that's one of the reasons why the cycle needs to be broken on this.
I agree. When I saw the news reports that there were these shootings in Greektown and on the riverfront, I was, it's April, and I'm like, okay.
It's a little early.
I feel like
I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's a little early.
Yeah, I feel like, unfortunately, when you do have warmer weather, these types of crimes happen.
And the police were around. Like, if you think about one that happened near the hotel there, I was reading a very harrowing account where somebody was driving down and they realized how desensitized they were. I want to reach out to them and have them on the show. How desensitized they were to just driving down Jefferson, and then there's this cop just starting across traffic to try to handle this issue. There were cops all over this area, and I can't help but think that, applying more cops to the situation, although politically popular with a group of voters that is very popular in this town,
right?
I don't know if it's actually going to do much.
Yeah, I don't always necessarily think that more cops is the answer.
Well, them arresting these people right away didn't deter anybody.
No, I feel like it's also more dangerous for people just in the area in general, because I feel like it's just adding more chaos to the problem.
Well, I'm torn on this because some of the responses and things were like, guns, and we need to take out the guns. And I don't disagree that guns are a problem with this, but I also know from my experience being in the city, look, more than half of my neighbors around here own guns, and they're not giving them up.
No.
That's just the reality here. Like, you can talk about those gun rules and whatever, but I think that we need to address them, especially with illegal guns in the hands of youth, things like that. But I also think that is one, corner. You're not going to, you're going to make whatever law you want. The poverty and the trauma and, the things of enslaved generations not that long ago.
Yeah.
Right? This is a much deeper issue that this is almost like bubbling out and venting out about, to me.
So I think the other main problem is that you have a group of young people who don't really have a place to go. Humans are social creatures. Most people like to be around other people. Most people like to go around and have fun and do stuff. But when you have teenagers and you have young adults, and they're not old enough to go to the bars. Why are they in the bar district? That's, to me, when I think Greektown, especially at night, I think bar district.
So there's multiple groups here we're talking about, right? We're talking about a situation where we have areas of people that may have beef between each other. We have a situation where there are a lot of people who are not old enough to drink
No.
in that bar district. I've seen the videos over the last few years.
Yeah.
What are they doing there? That should be a 21 and up area. Like, if that's the best that they can do for entertainment. And I don't believe that all these people are from the city of Detroit. I don't think that's a fair assessment whatsoever, looking at a number of crimes that happen. Whether you think about the people drag racing in my neighborhood, they're not all from the city of Detroit. No. It's because we as a region have a problem with places for people to go, and especially places for people to go that aren't rich.
Yeah.
You know, and also, of course, let's just be honest about it, Black. That's a real problem too. We don't have the support systems, the places for people to go, because these kids are going to do that. Like, everybody wants to hang out with their friends at that age.
I know for us, we're older, and so our places to hang out when we were these kids' ages were like the mall. But the problem is that malls aren't really a thing anymore.
No. Well, like, congregational areas aren't a thing anymore. Everything is so structured to the point where it's like, oh, well, you've got this practice here, this practice there, if you've got money.
Yeah.
If you don't have money, if you've got parents that are working multiple jobs, you know, they're laying down these curfew tickets, and I get why they're doing it. But also, like, if you're 17 years old, why are you there? Especially 17-year-old at night. But where else are you going to go?
And sometimes kids' home lives are not great. And so they need to get out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a safe place to stay at home sometimes. And then they don't have a safe place to go out and about.
Yeah.
And so what are you going to do?
This is a symptom, not the root of the problem. And so what I think we need to do is look at the resources, see what we can do on multiple levels. You know, we were joking before the show. I was like, what we really need is a DXL party in Greektown, meaning you can only wear DXL clothing. Like, you have to have bought it at DXL. You got it big and tall. Everybody, like, we bring out the Luther Vandross.
But
right?
what about
we have
the
a
women?
barbecue. I don't know. I don't shop for women.
I don't even know where. I mean, I shop at certain stores, but
in reality, all jokes aside, it's about stepping up in a way that, frankly, like, more police presence isn't going to do, that you and I talking on a microphone isn't going to do, because it's not something that group of people is going to listen.
No.
Because no 17-year-old is going to listen to me.
No.
Right?
My 8-year-old doesn't even listen to me half the time.
I think we have to think about this in a way that we have to address it across the next few generations. Mm-hmm. Because if you're already in this position at 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, these younger ages, we need to start putting in things in places so that we're not doing this for the next 5 years. And I don't feel like I see enough of that. I see, like, the occasional community center and whatever. I don't see that. And it worries me, because I would like to see this change. And, like, you and I have spent a lot of time at Athens over the years. Daryl Straughter's been the security guard there for a long time. And he was murdered over the dumbest thing, over a line dispute. And that's just unacceptable.
Yeah. I feel like Greektown has always had these problems. Like, even when we were in our, like, teens and early 20s, I remember my sister and cousin being at Plaka at like 3 a.m. and a big giant fight breaking out and tables flying. And my cousin was actually a police officer at the time. She's retired now. And she had to pull out her badge and be like, yo. And this was like in the early 2000s, right? So I worry about the future of this summer. And I worry that if we're already experiencing this type of violence in April, what is our summer going to look like? And I mean, and it's not just a Detroit problem. It's an everywhere problem.
I think we have to talk about a real answer to these issues across America, because Detroit is not alone. These issues happen in a number of places. That does not excuse them.
No.
And to me, I feel like it is a situation where we have these conversations about reparations or economic support and all these other things on the local level. To be very honest with you, I feel like this is a federal issue, because it's going to take federal dollars. It's going to take a lot more than what a city that is, frankly, it's financially better than it was, but Detroit doesn't have the money to fix these things.
No, they don't.
And so we need to think about this in a greater sense. I'd love to hear your feedback. dailydetroit@gmail.com. Let's go to the east side, talk about a place that you and I have both been in. In fact, one that I remember well from growing up on the east side when it still had its signage. In fact, for a while when I was a kid, it was still open, like just barely, but open. The Vanity Ballroom on East Jefferson in the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood. its fate, unfortunately, we have learned through the grapevine, is not assured. So to set the table, and you actually went to an event a while ago, like, was it 2016 that you toured this thing?
Yeah. I mean, it was a long time ago. It feels like another lifetime. But I went to a event where we were able to go into the Vanity Ballroom. They were talking about trying to find the money to renovate the building and talked a lot about a lot of the challenges that they had with finding the money.
This is a piece that was built in 1929. It was one of Detroit's great ballrooms. I think it's the last one in the best condition that is standing, although apparently the interior condition isn't great. I remember it wasn't great when you visited it back then.
It was not. They kind of gave us a little warning about saying like, hey, maybe don't go into the middle of the dance floor because it's not structurally sound.
Well, because the dance floor is on the second floor of this thing.
It is.
And there was retail on the bottom.
Yeah.
And the Vanity was like a center of people getting together, even though it was built at kind of an unfortunate time right ahead of the stock market crash. Now, from what I understand, is that there was a plan in place, and I think we talked about it a little bit, to bring this back to life. The idea was there was going to be a new form of brownfield financing that would be able to do multiple projects that would really help transform that East Jefferson area. That apparently didn't go through. Financing fell through. I don't think there are people that necessarily are to blame for this.
No.
But there's a huge financial gap with this one. And it's back in the city's hands.
Yes.
And when that's the case, I mean, hopefully there's an RFP and some things that are able to do something with it. But time's a ticking if you ever wanted to save a ballroom. Like, this is the time, like, to raise your hand and do it, because there's so much potential in that Jefferson Chalmers area. There's so many cool things happening. But it goes back to that conversation we had on the show. I don't know if you caught that episode about speed.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. You can't tell me that like 2016 to 2023 is fast. Like, that is glacially slow. It is part of why this icon is starting to crumble and crumble even more. We need to get a step in our step to get some things going. And I don't hold Jefferson East bad at this one. They got the Marlboro done. They do a lot of things. They really are trying to focus on roofs and housing improvements for residents.
And all those floodings that continue to happen in Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood.
It's now a FEMA flood zone on the riverside of Jefferson,
Yeah.
which also puts a big stop in getting a bunch of projects done.
Yep.
That's why there needs to be a solution found for making it so that that's no longer a floodplain, because a lot of federal dollars can't get in that, or even investment dollars. Nobody can put money into there to do it. And It's something where like they're between a rock and a hard place. I wasn't going to mention this, but I want to talk about it real quick. Fern is closing in the new center.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, just south of Grand Boulevard. And one of the things that was interesting about that is they talked about development promises that didn't come through.
Mm.
They talked about lack of population density,
Yes.
And that it just isn't a fit. They said that, in fact, their landlords really tried to work with them, do a bunch of stuff. But it goes into that idea of like they had a 5-year lease.
I think so, yeah.
And of course, there are some shifts that have happened with the pandemic. But like, in order to support businesses like that, you've got to have people.
Yeah.
That place is just a mile down the road from here. Maybe that's just not the right type of business for there. Maybe you're going to see more things like East English Village. Like, I was just over there. There's a lot more housing and things going into that area. And then housing that's kind of getting stabilized.
Right.
I want to be really positive. And there's things like the Hurlbutt Gate and other things that I've seen, the Book Tower. But I feel like the momentum isn't where it should be when it comes to these projects, because we do need more people living here, and we do need more of these things. And like that even ties into our earlier story with Greektown.
Yeah.
Like, you have the resources to do these things.
I mean, obviously the pandemic slowed things more than they already are slow to begin with. But I really hope that they're able to find the financing and the RFP to save the Vanity, because there's so much history that
And so much
happened.
opportunity to put a community together. or to
Yeah.
help.
I mean, and that could be a great place for young people to go.
Bingo.
Bam.
Now, before we get going for today's episode, got a lot of feedback on this one. I have some thoughts on it too. Turns out that General Motors is going to walk away from Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. They're going to do a custom, like, Google type interface for vehicles, starting with the 2024 EV Blazer. I got some thoughts on this one because I think automakers are kind of missing the boat on what people actually want in their car right now.
Yeah. I was also reading this, and at first I was like, oh great, they're walking away from the Android Auto. Cool, because I am an Apple person.
Right.
But then I was like, oh, but also they're also walking away from Apple CarPlay too. What?
Well, I figure like it should be a situation where you can choose which one you want.
Yeah, that would work.
But they're trying to do this like custom interface, and I'm just scared because I know that automakers want to hold on to it. They want it to be subscription revenue. Like automakers in a perfect world would love to make it so that you pay a monthly extra on top of your car note, that you don't own your car, like all those things. Like the future is trying to turn the revenue points of a car to be like a phone.
Right. So like you have to pay monthly for your heated seats like BMW is doing or trying to
proposal.
do.
Yeah. But let's just be honest. Everything designed by the automakers for info entertainment is awful.
It is.
It is just awful. And I'm sorry. Like, maybe it's because we don't get any sponsorship from them, but I'm just going to tell you the truth. Like, it's bad. Like, remember that? Like, the trip to Mackinac, we're trying to poke through this thing and it has no responsiveness to it and whatever. And maybe working with Google is all right. But at the end of the day, people just want their phones to extend into their cars. I know customers don't want things like, oh, well, we're going to show you ads. Like, this whole CAVNU project, this whole thing, and I'm all about mobility and I'm all about transit, but this idea that we're going to set up these roads so that like we can have ads and like our data shown, like sold to other people, that doesn't seem like the future I want.
No, I don't want my car to just start reading off ads randomly. I already get that if I have to listen to the radio or podcast, which, hey.
Support Daily Detroit, patreon.com/Daily Detroit.
I'm okay with listening to ads on podcasts. Right? Because it helps bring in money for people.
I mean, cars are already expensive enough as it is. That's the thing that's mind-boggling to me. A friend of mine's looking for a new car and like it's like $40,000 for something solid.
Yeah.
And that to me is okay, we're gonna try to bring more money onto that. I don't know, man. Like I have some worries.
Both of my cars are GM cars. I have a Chevy Cruze from like 2014. So that was the like really, it's touchscreen. But it's not very...
It's a trash screen.
You know what it reminds me of, Jer? Remember, like, in the beginning with touchscreen phones, that wasn't the iPhone, but, like, the Android touchscreen phones?
Yeah, with, like, the touch, it, like, squeezes
like, you had to physically... Like, you felt your finger physically going into the screen.
You can still see it in some, like, checkout places.
Yeah. That's how I feel like my touchscreen on the Cruze is. And the same with my Buick. And my Buick is a 2017. And that one is more touchscreen than the Cruze is, but it's still not great. And there are times when my phone just does not want to connect, or it'll connect and then it'll disconnect.
I mean, I know that I'm old school and I've driven newer cars than that. And I still like, and to be fair, like I've driven a Subaru, that system ain't great either.
Mm-hmm.
Like none of it's good. None of it. And that's why so many people go towards Android Auto and Apple CarPlay.
Yeah. Because
these designers are not making it work. They're not thinking about us. They're not thinking about like the ease of what's going on because they have a different motivation. That motivation is, oh, well, we don't want to see that part of our car because we don't want the car to be just like a transportation conveyance. We want the car to be like the center of your home.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is that like I just want to hook up my phone, whether it's Bluetooth or heck, you can give me an old school cable. I just want to play my podcast and my tunes.
Do you want to put your cassette tape into the tape deck to connect your phone?
I'm not at that point anymore.
Or connect your CD player.
Like if you're going to decide that you want to own that space, get good at it.
Yeah.
Anyway, love your thoughts. dailydetroit@gmail.com. As mentioned earlier, this is an abbreviated schedule, 3 episodes this week between a little bit of travel and then a little bit of morning here at Daily Detroit. We lost the studio dog, Raina, over the weekend. Many years that she was with us. What was one of your favorite Daily Detroit / Raina memories? Because she's been quietly in the studio for so many episodes. The perfect podcast dog. Would make no noise except an occasional tail thwap.
She was such a good dog. She spent a lot of time at my house.
Yeah, because whenever I would travel, when I used to work corporate, someone needed to watch her, and I trusted you to watch her.
My son was very, very sad that his Raina friend is no longer with us. But we always had a lot of fun. And my favorite was when I took my old dog, Rowdy, and Raina to Belial before the Udolph Gardens was a thing. I would take them to chase geese in that field over by the band shell.
Raina did love to go after the fowl.
She loved going after fowl.
When I was in North Corktown, like getting up in the morning, she would hear a pheasant.
Yes. And
like the pheasant, you'd hear it through this open window, and she would just be like right up in my face.
Yeah.
And she wasn't a cuddle dog. She was a dog that's like,
she was
equal.
A working dog.
She's a working dog. So she'd hear the pheasant and like just wake me up, 2 paws, nose at my nose, like, it's time.
Yes.
Do you know it's time? And so like I'd groggily get out and like go down to Astro or something and like, on the way, just let her like spook. Like obviously she didn't catch anything.
Right.
She more like to spook them.
Yeah.
A lot of good memories. Very lucky to have studio dog Gabby,
Yes.
her protege, her protege. What struck me is the comments when I shared about it. It made me realize that, I was more of an introverted person 10 plus years ago. I mean, I don't even know how many years it's been. And I remember that Raina was the way that I made friends.
Yeah.
And so many people, like we would go to work together at previous jobs or whatever and say, oh, our Raina. And that warmed my heart because Raina was a community dog. Like we used to go up back in the day. It used to be not okay, but it was a thing where you just go to certain bars that would allow dogs. This world doesn't exist anymore in Detroit. It would be posted, like everyone understood this was like dog day.
Yeah.
And go play in the bar yard and like do those things. And she would always just like wander up to people and be like, hi, how are you? And like I made so many friends that way and was able to explore the city because I was always had somebody with me to do things, even if I was on my own. I'm very thankful for all of that. A dog is the best friend you're ever going to have. And I know the whole team's been kind of like bummed about it. We haven't shared as much. When I was on the talking about my trip last week, the reality is I knew what was going to happen. I had a good feeling of what was going to happen when I recorded that Friday show. I probably could have fit in some more episodes, but I really, really can't this week with everything. But I appreciate all you listening. I appreciate everyone who appreciated her. With that, I am Jer Stays.
And I'm Cheyenne Oserini.
Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.